One of the interesting aspects of astrology, a technique, is called astrocartography, and or relocation charts. And this is based on the idea that you can change your horoscope according to a different place, as if you were born in that different place. And it's useful because it may be that you want to move to another place and see the effects upon your personality in that other place. Although the horoscope that you have at birth is your horoscope, and that really doesn't change, when you go to another place, certain aspects of the horoscope are much more pronounced in that place than they would be elsewhere. And what we study in relocation charts is which of the planets are more greatly emphasized according to where you are. There's a principle in astrology of a planet being angular. And an angular planet is on or close to one of the four angles: the midheaven and IC, the ascendant and the descendant. So perhaps in your chart you have one or two planets angular, and they're the stronger expressions of all the planets because of that emphasis that arises from being angular. And what we do with a relocation chart is just see which different planets would be angular should you move. So let's say, for example, you have Jupiter on the midheaven in Istanbul. Then if you went to Istanbul, you would experience Jupiter on the midheaven, and you might find a career development there. And if you move to Bali, you might have Venus on the descendant, and that might be where you move to go to a new partnership. You might meet your lover there, and so on. So we can find certain places in the world which support certain energies better. And it's quite a simple technique to interpret, in a sense, but it's not very easy to calculate. So if you need to find out what your relocation planets are, you might need to ask for help. If you're an astrologer, you can use a program and just change the birthplace to the place that you're considering. And that's a fairly simple thing to do. But if you're actually wanting to look at all your options and just to see where various things might be stronger, you'd have to look at the world map. And on this world map of astrocartography, you'll see that certain lines are vertical and certain lines are curved around the Earth, and these represent the midheaven and the ascendant. And indeed, some of these lines intersect, so that you can see that on those lines, on those points of intersection, you'd have at least two planets angular, maybe more. So that's it, really. It's quite simple. However, there's a subtle, nuanced sort of understanding which is perhaps more relevant. And that is, if you do not intend to move a long way, but you're deciding whether to go a little bit east or a little bit west, or a little bit north or south for that matter, you can see which of your planets increase in intensity. And this is actually quite useful. In my particular case, when I moved from England to Ireland, two of my planets, already angular, became all the more so. And so Uranus became closer to the descendant, Chiron closer to the ascendant. And here in Ireland, those two planets are clearly operating more strongly within me. So I can actually sort of see that by coming a little bit west of where I was born, my Uranus and my Chiron become stronger. And another thing you can do is just to notice which cities in the world are rather troublesome, and you can avoid them. I only learned about astrocartography after I went to Istanbul, where my Pluto is right on the descendant. And I had a terrible time there, really terrible. I mean, Pluto just came at me. So that's another use for it. But generally, it's a very simple question. Where would you find your such and such a planet at its strongest? Now, all of the four angles will strengthen the operation of an angular planet, but they would do that differently. The ascendant, you might just generally have a different an accent of your personality. You know, if Mars was on the ascendant, you'd be more active, presumably, more masculine in your outlook. If Mars was on your midheaven, that would be true in the sense of your career. If it was on your nadir, you might find yourself energetic in the building of a home, or in fact, on the descendant, you might meet a man who is influential for you, and so on. And the other planets are self-evident from their normal meanings, and that's it. It's a simple technique to interpret, as I've said, but the interpretation can be very subtle indeed. It's worth a look.